Hi there, this is Selena here. Welcome to Genetics at a Glance, and we are here for today's Q&A. Today's question is about, I've got heterozygous. I was diagnosed with a heterozygous. What does that mean? What are these variations? Where do they come from? And my doctor said there was 4 of them. What does all that mean? So we're going to show some different illustrations here, so I think it's a lot easier to explain it if you guys can see the picture of what I'm talking about here. So first off, I want you guys to understand that, and I can't do this while I'm talking. Let me just share my screen real quick. Oh, hold on. Okay, so here's my screen. So first thing to note is these genes, when we're talking about MTHFR, these are not like diseases. So if we have a variation, they're not mutations, they're not a disease. This is just a different variant or variation in these biochemical pathways. So these genes make up our biochemistry and making up what things like our metabolism and those sorts of things. And so when we have a SNP, when we have a variation, it just means that it's potentially that we could possibly have less optimal function of that gene. However, there's so much more to it than that because these genes are dependent on cofactors. They're dependent on what's going on in our environment and all those sorts of things. So we will circle back around to that. But I first want you to understand that, first off, these genes are not a disease. They are not a mutation. They're just a variation. So let's go and look at what these different variations are and what that means. So the homozygous or heterozygous, what does that mean? So there's 3 different types of variations that we can have. We can have the wild type, which that means basically there's no variations. This is what is considered normal. And then we have heterozygous. The heterozygous is a single variation. And then there is homozygous, which means that we have 2 variations. And so how do you get a heterozygous? So the heterozygous you can get a couple different ways. And this illustration, this picture here is one particular way that you can become a heterozygous. So one of your copies from one of your parents was a no variation. The other copy, there was a variant from. So in this illustration, there's a father, didn't have any variations. Both of his were he was the wild type. The mother was a heterozygous. So their children can either be also wild type because they're getting no variant from the father, and then they're also getting that no variant from the mother, like the blue side there from the mother. Or they could get that no variant from the father, and then they could get that lighter blue side from the mother, which would make them also heterozygous. So that's one of the ways that you could become a heterozygous. The same would be as if the father was heterozygous and the mother heterozygous, you could still become a heterozygous. You could also become homozygous in that particular situation. So that's how it happens, is you're getting one from each parent, and it makes up the 2, and that combination of the 2 determines whether you're wild type, heterozygous, or homozygous. And so the implications of that, like I said, it's similar to like a 4-lane, 2-lane, and 1-lane highway. However, a 4-lane highway isn't always the fastest. It's not always the best route, especially if you're looking at rush hour traffic, or if you're in the middle of LA, it really isn't going to matter. It's going to be at a standstill. So it's about the environment and the context. So understand, oh, we've got this heterozygous. Okay, great. In most instances, it doesn't really give us a whole lot. It doesn't really necessarily mean anything. It's really what is the context that this heterozygous is in. So what is influencing how that is going to operate? What kind of burdens are being put on that gene? And that's where we go back to these pathways, is to what's going on biochemically that our body is having to work at. And so are there burdens on there? Are we deficient in the cofactors? So these genes need other pieces to the puzzle to make them work. So for instance, MTHFR, we hear so much about that one. There's more. We get that methylfolate where our body needs more to use that. The next step is at the MTR gene, and it's going to use zinc, and it's going to use homocysteine as well as methyl B12. So having a bunch of methylfolate, if we don't have those other components, don't really help us with the rest of those downstream effects. So that whole rest of that methylation cycle, there's so much more to it. There's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of genes. And so just looking at one gene is similar like looking at one blade of grass or one grain of dirt in your yard to try to assess the whole health of your yard. I mean, it's just so much more to that bigger picture. So when we have these genetic SNPs, then I really strongly encourage others to okay, we got those, let's look at what is the context that these genes are trying to operate in, because there's going to be kind of a bi-directional relationship. The environment is going to determine the burden put on these pathways, and that amount of burden will influence the way those things operate. So it's kind of a catch-22 scenario. That's why it's really important to take a step back, look at the foundation, make sure that we're putting in good fuel into our bodies, just like we would put in good fuel in our cars, giving the nutrients, making sure we have these cofactors, we've got enough trace minerals, we have the vitamins that we need for these things to operate. So I hope that that was helpful for you guys. And if you've got any other questions, you guys are always welcome to reach out to me. You can message me, you can email me. And I have a guide as well that kind of goes over that has a lot of this illustration in it. You are welcome to message me if you guys would like a link to that, and I can share a link to that. We will see you guys next time. If there's questions, like I said, go ahead and post them below, or you can message me, and we will see you next time. Take care.